I couldn't have predicted it more perfectly. I said several times, I warned, they will come to your house, the angry mob, and they will make demands. And the police will have to decide how to stop the unrest in the street. And do you know what the police will do? The police will arrest you. They will not arrest the mob. They will say, oh, there's a First Amendment right, I guess. And what? If they arrest one person, more show up? No. It's easier just to arrest the homeowner. And that's exactly what happened. This story from the Post-Millennial. Milwaukee man mobbed by Black Lives Matter activists arrested for trying to defend his home. Now, at first, when I saw this story, I thought, we're dancing on the line here. You know why? The guy got arrested for brandishing a shotgun. He holds it up, he pumps it, and then he points it through the window. I think the window is closed, but he's pointing it at him through the window. Well, that's apparently why he got arrested. We don't know for sure why he got arrested, but many people believe that's the reason. Now, based on that alone, you might be saying, oh, well, I mean, the people were just in the street with bullhorns and lights and he pointed a shotgun at them. I mean, now he's brandishing a weapon. Well, as it turns out, many of these same activists, and one of the most prominent, a man whose name we know, had also gone and staged a mob event outside another house a couple months ago, where they burned that house to the ground for no reason. Okay, it wasn't burned to the ground. It was torched. The whole fire engulfed the building. It didn't completely collapse. I got to make sure I'm being very specific because, you know, the media will like to twist things. But yes, one particular activist has been going around leading many of these groups of these protests, much of this unrest. One of the houses they went to, there were apparently 2 young girls who were missing. That's right, 2 young girls missing, and the community got outraged. Someone reported seeing them in one particular neighborhood, and the police went around, couldn't find anything, and said it wasn't these girls weren't critically missing because it's only been a few hours. So apparently this guy shows up and starts live streaming. They find one house and start demanding the people inside, release the girls or whatever. The girls weren't there, so they burned the house down. They set the house on fire. I'll put it that way. Just be more specific. Turns out the girls weren't even missing. They were just out like playing at a friend's house. So this mob then shows up to this guy's house. He's got a Trump flag on his porch, and they are calling him racist. They say he harasses the neighborhood. Yeah, that may be true. There's a video there circulating where the guy is yelling, or somebody is yelling racist things. I don't know who the guy is. I have no idea if it's the same guy. And even if it is, what makes you think you have a right to go around yelling obscenities and flashing lights in their homes, but he has no right to do the same thing? They show up to his house, the same mob that had burned, or I shouldn't say the same, but in a similar fashion with many of the same people, to a mob that had set a house on fire. And this guy shows them he's got a weapon. He gets arrested. They will come to your house just like this. The cops will arrest you if you try to defend it. It's not the first time. It won't be the last. And it's not the last time I'm going to make a video about it. Let me read through these stories and show you exactly what's going on. This is a story from Post-Millennial. Milwaukee man mobbed by BLM activists arrested for trying to defend his home. Libby Emmons for the Post-Millennial writes, activists in Milwaukee, Wisconsin staged a protest at a neighbor's home on Monday, alleging that he was racist. Police were called when the man could be seen holding a gun, and then he was arrested. The story was reported on Twitter by Kitty Shackelford. I don't know who Kitty Shackelford is, but apparently this Twitter user, Kitty Shackelford, just found the live stream on Facebook and started uploading clips. Now, I also think it's kind of funny that Black Lives Matter activists will call the police on you. Now, they want to defund the police. I mean, that's a big call to action. They have one of their mission statements. Oh, yeah. But when it comes to the police arresting you and giving them what they want, they cheer for this. And they did. So they don't want to defund the police. They just want to be the police. And now the mob has gone to a man's home, a Trump supporter, and he's been arrested. As the crowd watches, laughs, and sings, you're about to go to jail. An officer enters the man home and seconds later escorts him out in handcuffs. The crowd goes exuberantly wild with applause and cheers. You're about to go to jail, a voice calls out over a megaphone, while other activists scream, F you, Pete, and don't arrest me, arrest Pistol Pete. Why did the cops arrest this man? What evidence did they have that he actually did anything that was claimed against them? Is in Wisconsin, I actually should have looked this up. I don't know for sure. Is it do you have the right to stand your ground or defend your property? What did he do that warranted his immediate arrest by cops who did not stage any kind of investigation. I have warned all of you as well that the police, with a smile on their face, will enforce unconstitutional edict. They're going to come out and they're going to say, governor says so. In this instance, it's not edict. In this instance, it's them saying it's easier to arrest you than deal with an angry mob. And that's what'll happen when they come to your house. Kitty Shackelford tweeted, I'm still trying to figure out whose house this is in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Seems to be outside the house outside the house who BLM is saying pointed a gun at them. The title of the video is We Still Lit. This goes out to all the racist neighbors. So I assume it's just a local racist. In fact, that is the case. It was a It was a local racist, and they said they were going to go to his house. Kitty tweeted, BLM group, including children, pouring onto someone's property that they seem to be harassing after he was arrested by police. They're calling him Probation Pete and are celebrating his arrest. Now, I wonder why it is. If this man decided to point this weapon, could it be, like I mentioned earlier, that these individuals, many of the same ones, had been in front of a house that was set on fire, and he was worried they would try to set his home on fire, and they were shining lights and screaming and playing music in the street? Maybe that's the reason. Or maybe it's because Milwaukee activist Vaughn Mays was arrested on allegations of burglary as party to a crime. This, of course, is the man who posted on Facebook, pull up at 5:30 today. This neighbor thinks it's cool to harass black neighbors, calling them the N-word, parade Confederate flags around. Since he loves going to other folks' houses and throwing parties they ain't asked for, let's show him how it's done. Okay. So a man who was previously arrested on suspicion of burglary, I'm not sure what happened with those charges, posts that he's coming to your home, the same man who had appeared in front of another house that was set on fire, and that guy is out in front of your house with a bunch of other people and they're screaming. Do you have a right at that point to assume the worst and defend yourself? Perhaps we're still on the line, or perhaps we're over it. I think considering this is a community, okay, many people on the outside won't understand that this guy in this house, he probably knows who this dude Vaughn Mays is. The dude Vaughn Mays has been arrested before. This dude Vaughn Mays live streams these events, and he probably said, that's the dude who got arrested for suspicion of burglary. I'm not saying the guy's guilty of burglary, but this guy might see that and say, this is the guy. This is the guy who went and live streamed and got a bunch of people to show up to this house and then set it on fire. Maybe that's what he was scared of. Doesn't matter. The cops arrested him. And then the craziest thing is, you got a guy who was arrested on allegations of burglary, Vaughn Mays, in this is his name, in Milwaukee. And they arrest the guy, take him from his home, and leave those people out in front of his house. It is only a matter of time before someone throws a brick, and then someone kicks the door in, and then they would have just ransacked the house. You see, like I said, it all happens in increments. And right now we're at the arrest the homeowner phase. I kid you not. The mob showed up to his house and they arrested him. Get away from cities, man. Get as far away from cities as possible. Make sure you're in a community that you trust, with people you know. Know your neighbors. Talk to your neighbors. Because when the mob comes for you, the police will arrest you. Welcome to morality policing. I said this would happen over and over again. Here we are. I remember when they went to Ted Wheeler's house, smashed up all the windows on the first floor of the condo building and threw flaming debris into it. And I said, you see, it's mob mentality. It's one person does one thing, and before you know it, there's an avalanche. And the snowflake doesn't blame itself for the avalanche. Let's go back and see what's going on at the post-millennial. Kitty Shackelford tweeted, this is what was going on outside the house before he pulled a gun on them. They went specifically to his house to protest him for being a racist. The homeowner was arrested and the crowd remains outside. They seem to have gone on his property. WTF Milwaukee. Should this guy be a racist? In my opinion, no. Can he be a racist? Yes. That's America. I don't like racists. And if this guy really was going around doing those things, I'm not a fan. But guess what? They're probably lying. You know, when they went to this house and set it ablaze, there were no missing girls inside. So I'll tell you what happens. This is why mob mentality is dangerous. This is why the police need to come out immediately and shut down the mob. Because one guy will be like, yo, that dude's a racist. And everyone will go, rabble, rabble, rabble. And they'll throw bricks and start fires. And they have no idea what's going on. When Luke Rudkowski, you might know him from We Are Change, was in Hamburg, Germany for the G20, he was walking down the street with a journalist who was German, and someone yelled Nazi Schweinhund, or some whatever, Nazi pig. A bunch of random people started punching him in the face, in the head. kicking him. And why? They didn't know who he was. Someone just yelled it. That's mob mentality. So how do I know this guy did anything wrong? I doubt it. And that's probably why this guy was showing that he had a weapon. If you come into my house, I will defend myself. If you try to hurt me or damage my property, I will protect myself and my property. I think it's really funny when look at this house. It's burned. Okay? They say the chaotic saga unfolded. The girls were missing. They weren't really missing. They actually weren't missing at all. And so here's what happens. They say, let me jump to the point where we can find our friend, Vaughn Mays. At about 10:15 a.m., Vaughn Mays, a highly visible community activist, arrived at the scene shortly after police. Perhaps 24 people were already there when Mays began an hours-long live stream video over Facebook, which soon grabbed the attention of several thousand viewers. In the opening minutes of the video, he addresses the camera and spoke about the difficulty of getting a missing persons report and that community members had set up their own system via social media for listing missing people. He said he went to North 40th Street because a home there had a reputation for housing missing children, and he intended to help find them. People feel like the police don't do expletive. So a lot of this expletive is taking our own expletive into our own hands. While police searched the home on North 40th Street, Mays and others walked around the neighborhood knocking on doors in search of the girls. When they returned about 11 a.m., police had left the scene and the crowd had grown larger. It's happened before. The police show up. They leave because they can't do anything. The mob then starts fire to a house because they just believed something. Without evidence, they didn't care. They didn't know what was going on. They didn't know where the girls were, and the girls weren't actually missing. This house is going to come down, May said. I'm telling y'all, it's too many people. Even before the gunshots, Mays repeatedly made remarks about how a potentially chaotic situation was brewing. Before the gunshots. So could it be that this dude showed up before, that these people had Black Lives Matter in the streets and the revolution fist in the streets? There have been gunshots at these events before. They had set a house on fire before, and this guy decided to defend himself? Well, he's been arrested. And these people are planning more. Cassandra Fairbanks for the Gateway Pundit writes, Black Lives Matter bringing protest parties to Trump supporters' homes. Facebook account still active despite repeatedly posting addresses of conservatives. Now, I always say this. I do not like the Gateway Pundit. I do not think they're a good outlet. But Cassandra Fairbanks does do a good job, and I trust her. And she actually shows the posts. She writes, on Tuesday evening, a Trump supporter was arrested for holding a shotgun by the window of his home as it was surrounded by a mob of far-left lunatics. As it turns out, it wasn't this group's first time showing up at the home of a random person to protest and intimidate. On a Facebook page called Justice Tour 2020, Vaughn L. Mays, a man who describes himself as Milwaukee's Malcolm X, has been posting personal information on Trump supporters. The page is littered with people's phone numbers, addresses, and calls for crowds to show up at their homes for protest parties. They're going to come to your house for no reason other than they accuse you of being a racist. That's it. And you might not even be a Trump supporter. Wake up. Share this video. Let people know it's happening. Because you probably got one or two fence sitter friends or, liberal friends who are like, I don't know, I'll be fine. As long as I keep my head down, the mob won't come for me. I can't believe how many people say that. How many people said they won't speak up because they just want to be safe. Death comes knocking door to door, and you think he'll pass over your house. Yeah, as people take red paint and write Black Lives Matter above their doors in a desperate bid to beg them for safety. It won't work. Sometimes it works. Sometimes people put the signs up in their windows hoping that people spare them. And it doesn't matter. There's a really funny photo of like a Whole Foods with all these signs saying we support Black Lives Matter or whatever and end racism. And all the windows are smashed and destroyed. Smaller shops might get a pass. It's so hilarious, isn't it? Take the red paint, put it above your door. Isn't that how it works? So we can see Cassandra's posted this Facebook, you can see the Facebook post. Former Milwaukee Police Chief Alfonso Morales was also targeted by the group, who repeatedly held protest parties outside his home. Quote, the protesters say they're bringing the fight against racism to front doors. But Alderman Nikaya Dodd, who represents the 5th District, where Morales lives, says the protests are a nuisance and a threat to public safety that must be addressed immediately. The Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel reported in July. Morales was demoted back to a captain in August for using tear gas and pepper spray against rioters. They're going to come to your house. They believe they have the right, and they believe they have the right to attack police. Take a look at this from bostonreview.net. I don't know what this source is. I don't know what Boston Review is, but apparently they make reference to Vaughn L. Mays, the guy who calls himself Milwaukee's Malcolm X, the guy who's going to people's homes, the guy who has been arrested on allegations of burglary in the past. It's going around to people's homes. And here's what he said. In this article, they say, thus, Vaughn L. Mays, a respected community activist in Milwaukee, immediately responded to Floyd's killing with a call for law, policy, and legislation to allow for legal defense against unlawful arrest, saying, quote, I think you should be able to defend yourself against abusive police. For instance, if a cop violates my rights and is violent with me, I have a right to defend myself. Here, Mays harkens back to the not violence philosophy of Milwaukee's NAACP commandos. Given the fact that police violence in black communities is routine and sometimes exceptionally brutal, we must not criminalize the acts of self-preservation and community defense through which people and activists try to defend themselves. What he's saying is he believes they have a right to resist arrest if they feel the cops are doing something wrong. But whoever thinks they deserve to be arrested? How many people do you say like, you got me, officer. I was committing a crime. Put her there. I'll put my hands behind my back. Some people do. And sometimes the cops still get aggressive with people. And often the cops will say it is a lawful order to exit your vehicle. And the guy's going to say no. And then they're going to say, I have a right to defend myself against you. No, police need to be able to make arrests. Sometimes they make unlawful arrests. We need reform and better ways to deal with unlawful arrests. Body cameras help. And having them always on and penalizing cops who don't use them for stops. We also have to recognize body cameras help cops, the good cops. And I've talked to a lot of police who say that good cops like body cameras because it protects them. And I don't know if you saw the video that came out of Tulsa, this horrifying video. We would not have known what happened to these officers were it not for their body cameras. Body cameras protect the officers. And that's why bad cops don't want them. I've heard over and over again cops saying, oh, no, we can't have that. I don't care. There are good cops out there who want to be protected. They want people filming. I've seen there's videos where one cop is like, let me help you film as a guy was being detained because they know there's a lot of scrutiny on what they do and they want to show the world they've done the right thing. Of course, maybe there are some complications with body cameras. One of the best arguments against them is that police can selectively turn them off, use it when it protects them, and then say, oops, it malfunctioned. Whatever. Don't care. Body cameras, I think, will help. I don't know if it's the end all be all solution. And I'm sure there's a lot we got to work out before we just say body cameras are the answer. But fighting with cops, that's this guy's solution. So listen, this guy will say he has a right to defend himself. Okay. What about this guy in Milwaukee? Did he have a right to defend himself against the police? The police went to his home and he got arrested. We assume he got arrested. He could have been detained. Apparently, the Milwaukee police didn't issue a statement. Either way, the cops came and took him away. Should he have fought the cops? They were coming into his house. He didn't do anything wrong. The mob were the oppressors. According to Vaughn L. Mays, apparently he should have a right to do that. They say the confrontation came to a head when activists, this is post-millennial again, called the man out directly. Lights are shown on his home, which dons an American flag and an all aboard the Trump train sign. The activists turn their attention to the home. The music no longer plays, and activists address the man with their full voices or with the use of a megaphone. Everybody believes the babies, a voice says. The man can be seen inside holding his gun as activists call him out by name. So they claim this guy is a racist. They claim he parades around with Confederate flags. There's no Confederate flag on his property. And imagine if the guy was going to go march around with Confederate flags, he'd have one. No. He has a Trump flag and an American flag. That's all it took. You're going to sit around and wait? Because they're not doing anything about it. The police just came and arrested him. I would like to know where the DOJ is right now. I know. In Missouri, the governor said that he will pardon the McCloskeys. It's a similar situation. They did ultimately get arrested, not immediately, and their guns were seized, and they're facing felony charges for defending their property. Here we go again. Will the governor defend this guy? I doubt it. Pretty sure the dude's a Democrat. Could be wrong. I doubt it. So we need the feds to start coming in and cleaning up. I'll tell you something. If these cops came and arrested the homeowner and they knew what they were doing, those are corrupt cops. They're corrupt. Police officers are supposed to be defending our constitutional rights. If you are in your home, on your property, minding your own business, and you have a gun, you have a Second Amendment right to bear arms. Why would they go in and arrest this man? Sure, I get it. Brandishing is illegal. But these cops who would allow this mob to harass, I mean, it's harassment. It's outright harassment. Charge these people with harassment. The cops would go in and arrest the guy. You're not going to enjoy police who don't believe in the Constitution. If we come to a point in society where the cops just say whatever the mob says is go, then you're not going to have rights anymore. No one will. The mob will just tear everything apart and get whatever they want. Spineless police, corrupt police. I truly believe this is corruption. I'm not saying specifically what the cops, these individual cops, I don't know the full circumstances. What I'm saying is any cop who would enforce unconstitutional orders, knowing they're doing it, or not even caring, that's corruption. Now, of course, I hear from all these people saying the cops got to follow orders. They don't know exactly why they're doing what they're doing. Well, maybe they should. Maybe they should brief people on everything. Here's what we know. This is what happened. The mob showed up. Here's a guy. And the cop can say, you want us to arrest a guy because he's in his own home and he's got a gun to defend it? I'm not doing that. Why would I do that? Right now, what do we get? Cops will just walk up and do whatever they're told. And if that means some corrupt governor or mayor says, do it, the cops go, okay. And then you'll end up seeing salon owners getting arrested, gym owners getting arrested. And then what? We just live in a society where the mob can show up and make a demand and the cops will say, okay, I don't want to live like that. These cops got to be held accountable, same as everybody else. The mob wants the police on their side. And guess what? After all is said and done, it's amazing. The cops would just say yes to this. Perhaps there's some other circumstances. Maybe the guy got arrested for something else. You know, it's entirely possible. This guy had a warrant. Maybe the guy earlier in the day was seen punching someone in the face. I have no idea. But as it appears now, it seems as though it was, he was brandishing a weapon and the cops show up and people are yelling it. But I want to wrap this up by being very, very clear. The police have not issued a statement as to why he's arrested. So you need to understand he could have been arrested for a million different things. We just don't know. We really don't. For all we know, this guy was a wanted criminal and the cops were like, we got a warrant for his arrest. And it was a coincidence. In my opinion, looks like he got arrested for trying to defend his home. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel, and I will see you all then.